Welcome to Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure. I'm Rob Wilson.
And I'm Tony DeQuano.
Today we are going to be talking about Return of the Jedi. We're going to complete the original Star Wars Trilogy. And before we get started, I just want to say, spoiler alert, we are going to be talking about every bit of the movie. And we may be talking about some other, side Star Wars things, some of the TV shows and other Star Wars movies briefly. We're going to try not to spoil any of those as best we can. But we are definitely going to be spoiling everything about Return of the Jedi, pretty much. So, spoiler alert, if you have not seen it yet, pause this podcast and go watch it and then come back and finish the podcast. Unless you don't mind spoilers, then just keep on listening. But yeah. Now that that's out of the way. Oh, and also, by the way, I think last time in the Empire Strikes Back one, I think I mentioned briefly that was the first time we saw Boba Fett. I know it's not. He was in the holiday special in a cartoon, so it just meant that that was the first live action appearance of him in Empire Strikes Back. So
the holiday special on Disney Plus?
It is not.
It is not.
The holiday special is George Lucas refused to do. He hated it. And so he had actually gone on record saying that if he could track down every copy that was in the world, he would go after every one of them with a sledgehammer. So yeah, no, the holiday special is not currently on Disney Plus. But I heard a rumor that they might be considering putting it on there someday. But I don't know how accurate that is. So don't quote me on that.
Okay.
But yeah, so Return of the Jedi. So when last we left our people in Empire, Han had been frozen in carbonite and taken by Boba Fett somewhere. We don't know where yet. Well, we do kind of know it's Jabba, because that's what they've been talking about the whole movies, like both the movies. Jabba's after him. So it's assumed, but is it really ever actually clearly stated that he's taking him to Jabba?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, I didn't think so. But we do know that he works for Jabba, and Jabba's the one that wants him.
There's enough to gather.
Yeah, there's enough for it.
No, so good picking up on that part of the cliffhanger, trying to figure out, what's going to happen. Most people know, even watching it later, kind of know that Han's probably going to be okay, right?
Yeah.
But it's a good pickup to kind of figure out where's it going to go.
Yeah, at least they hope that he's okay because, Harrison Ford didn't sign a 3-movie deal like everybody else did. He was going movie by movie, which is why they had him frozen in carbonite. So that in the chance that he didn't come back for Return of the Jedi, and they could have an excuse for why he's not there.
And beginning of the movie, do we know what Luke and Leia, everyone else has been up to?
Just that Luke got his new hand. Yeah, he got his new hand, and then gazed off into space with Leia and R2 and C-3PO, looking out the huge window of the viewport of the medical frigate.
It's an interesting start. Because, there's a lot that's obviously unresolved. That's not that uncommon, I guess, for the middle part of a trilogy, right?
Yeah.
But even with the Empire, there's no Death Star. What are they up to? What are they doing? So, yeah, there's a lot of question marks going into it. I think it's interesting because, obviously Empire is very bleak at the end. And the tone of Jedi is very different.
Yeah. Very much so. Especially the special edition.
Yeah, it doesn't take that long to even shift that tone.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean...
if you're watching it all in a row, right?
Yeah. I mean, it starts out, we got R2-D2 and Z-3PO going to Jabba's palace, where, unbeknownst to 3PO, Luke is gifting them to Jabba. But it's all part of his plan to break Han out of there.
Pretty elaborate plan.
It is. It's a very elaborate plan. I mean, he had to have been a master chess player, because how could he be so many moves ahead to know that all the steps that Jabba's going to take? R2 had Luke's lightsaber inside him. How did he know all of this was going to go about so that R2 could launch the saber to Luke? I mean, was that specifically planned for doing at the Sarlacc pit, or was it, does R2 have an adjustable launcher that it doesn't necessarily have to send it so far? Could he just like slowly raise it up and have Luke just pick it up out of him?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever really thought about that question. I understand having like Lando on the inside, kind of spying, scoping things out. But yeah, it's an elaborate plan, and it's been, I guess, he's been training as a Jedi more in the gap of that time.
Yeah, and it makes sense for him to, hide his lightsaber and not take it in with him, because I think he figured that part of his plan, of course, was probably to get captured, or at least he didn't want the guards to take his lightsaber away when he got to the palace. So it was smart of him to hide it, but you really have to wonder how far ahead was he thinking with that?
Right. He obviously had the contingency that, things could go sideways. But was he hopeful that Jabba wasn't going to be that merciless? That he was just going to, potentially just accept a trade and be no violence?
Yeah, I mean, after Luke gets captured and they're taking Han and Luke and Chewie to the cargo skiffs to go out to the Pit of Carkoon, Luke wasn't acting like that particular part was part of his plan.
Right, no. I mean, even, I don't think he obviously didn't expect to be dropped into the rancor pit.
No, but he took out the rancor. Able to get
himself out of that jam.
Yep. With the help of had to have been a femur, a leg bone,
someone's
from
femur.
Something. It looked like it was bigger than a human, so like a bigger alien kind of femur to try to keep the rancor's mouth open, and then a skull. So I mean, I guess he's lucky that the rancor was a messy eater, that he didn't throw away the trash from his meals.
Yeah,
and that nobody came in and cleaned up after him.
Not even his little his keeper.
Because he propped its mouth open with a bone, and then threw a skull with a button to close the door and shut the door on its head. Then his poor keeper, the poor rancor keeper.
Which, if you've seen the Book of Boba Fett, you understand that bond a lot better now.
Yes, you do. Between the rancor and its keeper, and you completely understand why the guy's why the guy's crying so hard.
But I've always loved that scene. It's maybe rancor's probably one of my favorite Star Wars monsters.
Yeah, mine too.
I think Jedi can get mixed opinions, but I always think that scene and just the rancor itself is always a highlight and a big positive. It's one of the things I find a lot of joy with in Star Wars, and just the creativity of that and the creation of it.
Yeah.
It goes back to what we were talking about in New Hope, just with Lucas wanting to recreate the serials, and like that type of scene really captures it.
Yeah, it really is. The hero gets captured and then has to fight his way out, against seemingly impossible odds, against some big monster that your average person has no chance against. So then the question is, so the trapdoor that Luke falls down into, after he falls down in there, the platform that Jabba is on moves up to cover the hole.
Right.
So then does it move back after the door closes so that it can move forward again after the next person gets dropped down there? Or are there just several trapdoors in a line that he just goes down the line, and then once he gets to the end, just backs all the way up? Because they never show it going back. Because when the Twilight Dancer upsets Jabba and he drops her down there, the same thing happens. The platform goes forward, covers up the hole for the trapdoor, and then you never see it go back.
Nope.
So is it just, with each person that gets dropped down there, does it just like a lot better? Does it just make the area in front of his platform smaller, like the floor space in front of his platform smaller, until he gets up to the wall and can't go forward anymore? And then they just back him all the way up, and there's like 10 trap doors in a line.
Well, you never know how many people he might need to drop at one time.
True. And you'd think the people that go in there that aren't in handcuffs or anything like that, you'd think they'd, see the cracks for the trap door on the floor and not stand on top of it. Like Luke, he was just walking in there. He just walked in there, did a force choke on the Gamorrean guards, and then just walked right past them. Did a mind trick on Bib Fortuna, and just walked right into the throne room. So he wasn't bound or anything like that.
To know the trapdoor.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he felt the life force of the Rancor below him. So even if he didn't see the trapdoor, then he probably thought, well, there's probably a way for him to get me to this big monster that's down there.
Right.
So, and the best place logically for that to be would be right in front of Jabba's platform. So maybe don't stand there.
Like, I get that Jabba is, he's able to block his mind enough so that, Luke's not going to try to do any tricks on him necessarily, or at least to kind of know his mind. Jabba's, he's wise enough for that.
Yeah, and the Jedi mind trick only works on the weak-minded, and I guess Hutts, or at least most Hutts, aren't weak-minded. But one other question that I have. When Luke fell down the trapdoor, he had used the Force to pull somebody's blaster out of their holster, and he had it in his hand when he went down there. What happened to it when he hit the floor? Why didn't he just shoot the Rancor? He had it in his hand when he fell down the trapdoor.
He did.
But he didn't have it when he got to the bottom of the slide. So did he drop it on the way down the slide and it got lodged somewhere in there? Because, I don't know, if I'm going down, if I'm getting dropped into a Rancor pit and I have a gun with me,
I'm using it.
I'm using that gun to protect myself against the Rancor.
And if I dropped it, I'm finding it.
Yeah. So what's up with that?
Good question.
I guess it was in the script, but hoping that nobody noticed that the gun disappeared.
So, what do you think of the whole I guess even Leia's plan?
So, Leia's plan, she was disguised as the bounty hunter Bosch, who was a retired bounty hunter at the time, and she got a hold of his uniform, and she was taking Chewie in there as a prisoner to get the bounty for him so that all of them could be in the same place, I guess, to break Han out. So she used Chewie as her access to Jabba's palace, where then later on that night, she went and thawed out Han from the carbonite. So, I mean, I thought it was a solid plan. It was clearly, part of the overall plan for everybody, but I still don't quite understand why everybody had to get themselves captured in order to break one guy out.
Yes.
I mean, Lando was pretending to be one of the guards. So couldn't he have just snuck in there, thawed Han out, and then, snuck out with him?
We need the dramatic escape. That's essentially what it is.
Yep. I guess there wouldn't be a big pit with a creature in it that, when it eats you, it takes 1,000 years for you to digest.
Lucky for some of them, not lucky for most of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, somebody like, Yoda, who can live for hundreds of years, maybe he could build a little summer home in the Sarlacc's stomach while he's waiting to be digested.
Build a fire.
Yeah, sure. Hey, in Empire, Han and Leia were walking around inside a space slug's mouth, so walking around on its tongue. So
why couldn't Yoda build a little hut inside the Sarlacc's stomach?
So, so speaking of Yoda, he showed up in this movie again. Awesome Yoda.
Love Yoda.
But
not enough Yoda in this movie.
Yeah, but he wasn't as active as he was in Empire. In this one, he was quite tired. He was napping a lot until he just napped himself to death, basically.
It's like that meme, You seen that meme? It's I never understood why Yoda would just die after Luke asking him all these questions.
Yeah.
And then became a dad.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I haven't seen that meme. I thought you were going to talk about the one where with Yoda kind of opening his eyes and it says The Force Awakens, and then it shows him with his eyes closed and it says The Force needs 5 more minutes. Yeah, so after the whole Sarlacc pit battle, which was a pretty awesome scene.
It
was a pretty awesome scene.
Terrific action sequence.
Yeah, where Luke's new lightsaber that he built because he lost his other one when his hand was cut off makes its debut, and it's green instead of blue, which that was because they originally wanted it to be a blue lightsaber because Jedi would have blue, Sith would have red.
Yep.
Or at that time, Sith wasn't even a thing. So good guys blue, bad guys red. But the blue lightsaber blended in too much with the blue sky of Tatooine. So they changed the color to green so that it would show up better on camera or in the effects and stuff. So it worked. It was an awesome green lightsaber. And it introduced a new color to lightsabers that has been used ever since in just about every Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Ever since. So, yeah, after that scene where all that happens, where they defeat Jabba, after Jabba makes Leia his slave.
In that scene.
Yeah. But yeah, after Jabba makes Leia his slave, then she strangles him with the chain that he has her hooked to. And just a very great scene there.
It's kind of graphic, you know?
It is. It really is. Then, Leia aims the gun for the sail barge at the deck, and Luke fires it as he swings off of the sail barge with Leia in his arms. And then the barge blows up, and they escape on one of the skiffs. But they don't forget the droids. They pick them up.
The droids.
But then Han,
he was still blind essentially.
Yeah.
Because he's spent how long?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, because he went temporarily blind because of the carbonite. But according to Leia Bosch, his eyesight would return in time. Yes. And apparently it returned quick enough for him to be able to fly the Falcon off of Tatooine. Because, I'm assuming that he's the one flying. It never actually shows him in the cockpit. I guess it could have been Lando or Chewie flying, but...
Letting anyone else... Yeah. Lando could fly it, yeah.
And Chewie could fly it. Chewie's the co-pilot, so he's allowed to fly it anytime he wants. But yeah, so they split up. Luke goes to Dagobah to see Yoda, and Han and Leia and Chewie and Lando go to the Rebel fleet. And so, yeah, there's where we have Yoda explaining to Luke that, yes, Darth Vader is indeed his father.
Right. Confirmation.
So, which that was put in there because they were afraid that with Darth Vader telling him that he's his father in Empire, that kids would not believe him because Darth Vader's a bad guy. And they'd think that he was lying.
That's a terrific point.
So they wanted to confirm it from Yoda. So they wanted Yoda to confirm to Luke
Trust the grandfather of Yoda.
Exactly.
Evil.
Exactly. So, yeah, Luke keeps on asking Yoda all these questions, and then Yoda dies because Luke's annoying him. He annoys him to death.
It's like you're worse than your father.
Yes. But I also don't understand. So when Luke left Dagobah and Empire, Yoda's big complaint was that Luke's training wasn't complete.
Yes.
But when Luke comes back to complete his training, Yoda tells him that his training is complete. All he has to do now is confront Vader. So what changed?
Who knows? It's not like he's been doing secret training with Ghost Obi-Wan.
No, because we hadn't really seen Obi-Wan anywhere but Dagobah at that point. He showed up, Ghost Obi-Wan showed up on Hoth, but ever since then he was just on Dagobah. So he was kind of just sitting there chilling with Yoda, playing bridge or something on Yoda's front porch, waiting for Luke to show up. And they all meet up again back with the fleet, where they're planning the attack on the second Death Star. Yes, there's a second Death Star.
Of course. See?
A bigger one.
So big that J.J. Abrams copied it in every movie he's ever made.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not literally every movie. But.
No, I'm pretty sure there was a Death Star in Super 8.
Was it a Death Star on Alias, or we're not going to count as TV shows? I don't know.
Well, not one in every episode. There might have been one a season.
I mean, even in Lost, I think like the donkey wheel was essentially just like the Death Star.
Yeah. The frozen donkey wheel. Yep. Would it be the donkey wheel or the cork?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Maybe it's the cork.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's a discussion for another time.
Yeah, that's a discussion for another time. But yeah, so they're on Home 1, the Mon Calamari Star Cruiser, where they get briefed on the new Death Star and how they're going to try to destroy it.
Can we give a shout out to Admiral Akbar?
Yeah. Admiral Akbar, one of the greatest alien characters in all of Star Wars.
Without a doubt.
Known for one line that, I mean, he has plenty more lines in the movie, but the only one people remember is, "It's a trap!" And he says it so masterfully. But no, he deserves a lot more credit than he gets, I think. Because he's sort of become a meme in himself.
He has. He kind of became a cult favorite, and I think people got justifiably upset in Episode 8.
Yeah.
That it's kind of unceremoniously, Anyway, if you haven't seen the sequel trilogies.
Yeah, we're not going to spoil those for you if you haven't seen those. At least not on purpose. We're not going to spoil them on purpose. So, but yeah, so it's the new Death Star is orbiting the forest moon of Endor. Endor is a gas giant planet with a forest moon that is also called Endor. So it's also called the Sanctuary Moon. But so there's a shield generator that's putting a shield up around the Death Star. So people have to get the shield deactivated if they want to land on the Death Star. Or apparently if they want to land on Endor at all, because when the rebels go down there, they ask to shut off the shield so they can land. Which doesn't really make much sense because they're not actually landing at the shield generator or anything like that. They're landing on the outskirts in the forest where they shouldn't have to go through the shield. But it makes for a tense sequence when they're on the shuttle flying down there and Luke senses Darth Vader on his Super Star Destroyer.
It does.
And he regrets coming on the mission because he knows that Vader can sense him too. Yep. But then we have a very exciting sequence on Endor. So the speeder bikes are awesome. I always wanted a speeder bike.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. And again, we can, gone into some of the logic of Jedi, but it has some of the most exciting sequences.
It really does. It really does. I mean, they're speeding through the forest on basically motorcycles that hover, and they're going really fast and trying to avoid hitting trees, and that doesn't really work out very well for most of the people who are riding them.
Everyone talks about, why don't we have flying cars by now? Get the flying cars. Let's just have, hovering motorcycles.
Yes, let's have some speeder bikes. Yeah. Yeah, I want one. Yeah, so, and how do you feel about Ewoks?
So that's always the question. So
because it seems to be, if you're born before a certain date, then you love the Ewoks. If you're born after that date, you hate them. Or no, if you're born before that,
your mother tackles this well.
Yes, they do. Yes, it does.
And because I think I caught Jedi later, as opposed to, let's say you were that target audience that was, let's say you were born in the early 70s, so maybe you didn't catch the first Star Wars in theaters.
Yeah, I guess if you're born earlier, then you hate them. If you're born after a certain point, then you love them.
No, but if you were a 10-year-old in 1983 watching Jedi, you're probably loving the Ewoks.
Oh yeah,
right.
Oh yeah.
Obviously we were 8 years old in 1983. You're loving the Ewoks.
Yeah.
By the time I really caught it, I was probably 6th, 7th, 8th grade, somewhere in there. So I didn't hate it, but I wasn't like, oh, Ewoks are super awesome.
See, I saw it when I was 10, so I loved them. I loved the Ewoks.
What's interesting about it is that I remember asking some friends that were very well versed in Star Wars at that time, and like, oh yeah, what's your favorite Star Wars movie? Every one of them was Jedi. Now I don't know many people anymore that say it's Jedi, but my 8-year-old, and when he first saw them, he was 7. His favorite Star Wars movie is Jedi.
Yep,
because he loves the Ewoks.
Yep. So did you watch it with him again this time?
Yes.
Okay, because you watched the other two with him. So
Yep.
I was hoping that you watched this one with him too before the podcast to prepare.
He loves the Ewoks. He wants Ewoks, and it's funny, to bring another movie in some ways, in a very similar way, I guess, is like one of his other favorite movies right now is Sonic the Hedgehog. Right,
solid movie.
And you have very similar thing, kind of these fun furry creatures, and yeah. I just want to know, like, what was the recon of the Empire? Like, they were they not aware how advanced the Ewoks were?
I don't know that it was that they're so advanced. They're primitive.
Right.
That's the whole thing. They took out the Empire with primitive weapons.
True.
So I think the Empire just saw them and they didn't think they were a threat because they're these little tiny bears with spears and bows and arrows and rocks. And so they figured that their 6 foot tall, fully armored, blaster wielding stormtroopers would be able to take them out. Boy, were they wrong.
Very, very wrong.
So yeah. But yeah, I think that's what it was. Either that or they just, I would imagine that they would have had to see them somewhere on the planet while they were building the landing pad and the shield generator and all that stuff. Because I wouldn't think that the Ewoks would hide that much. I don't know that they would be able to hide themselves for so long.
No.
Against the Empire. So it had to have just been that they didn't see them as a threat.
Hubris. I guess that's the other thing. The Emperor, obviously, this is where he's finally heavily involved, and even it seems like he should be able to kind of sense potential outcomes.
Yeah, but I mean, Luke even told him to his face that his overconfidence is his weakness.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, so we got the Ewoks, and you know how the Ewoks came about?
No.
The Ewoks came about because originally George Lucas wanted a planet full of Wookiees. But then he loved,
I think I've heard.
Yeah, then he loved the idea of having a Wookiee co-pilot for the Millennium Falcon. And if he has a Wookiee co-pilot, then that kind of has to be the only Wookiee that's really focused on. So he took his planet of Wookiees, cut them in half, and called them Ewoks.
Shrunk them down.
And they filmed that in the Pacific Northwest, in the redwood forests of Northern California. And the whole time when they were filming out there, Peter Mayhew was not allowed to wear his Chewie costume out by himself, without other people around, because they didn't want people to think that he's Bigfoot and get shot. Which is it's a very real concern out there.
Very.
When you're a 7'3" dude in a big hairy costume, I could definitely, walking around in the woods, I could definitely see how it could be easy to mistake you for a Sasquatch.
You might think he's Bigfoot. I mean, I'm sure, I think you have. I've seen him in person.
So have I. Yeah. Yeah, we saw him together.
Yep.
Yeah, we saw Bigfoot at the same time. That's a story for another time, though.
It is a story for another time.
It's a great story for another time. But yeah.
I do want to get around real quick to what you're saying about the being the Northwest. I always thought that a lot of the location choosing is always kind of really spot on.
Yes.
And they do a great job of making it feel like it's completely another world. Just even the Tunisian desert.
Yeah.
This is another terrific example of that. So.
Yes, which they've gone back to over and over and over again in the movies and in the shows.
And it all comes back to the Tatooine.
So there is a really funny thing that I noticed fairly recently when I watched it about a year and a half ago. So part of the Rebel strike team is this old guy with a big bushy beard.
Yes.
A big bushy white beard. Who forever has just been the old guy with a big bushy white beard. But then they went and made the Clone Wars and then Rebels cartoons. And one of the major characters in Clone Wars especially is Captain Rex. one of the clone
Right.
captains, one of the clone troopers. And then so he came back in Rebels, and he has a big white bushy beard in Rebels, and regularly still wears his clone trooper armor and disguises himself as a stormtrooper on occasion and stuff like that throughout the course of Rebels. And then at the end of Rebels, it is revealed that, spoiler alert, that he sticks with the rebellion and fights at the Battle of Endor as part of the strike team on the planet, with everybody. And so that old white bearded guy on Endor has sort of been retconned to be Rex.
Interesting.
So there's one shot in the entire movie where, when they're going to try to take out the shield generator and get captured, the whole strike team, and they're all standing out there with their hands on their heads and stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Where there's one shot of a group of rebel soldiers all in their camo and everything, with the one old white bearded guy who is dressed like a scout trooper without the helmet on, but his hands are up on his head, so you know that he is a prisoner, and he's clearly the old dude that has been in with the group, but he's dressed like a scout trooper, which just even further confirms it has to be Rex. Because why would he be the only one putting on stormtrooper armor?
Yes.
It's awesome. it just further confirms that guy is Rex, which is great because Rex was one of my favorite characters in all of the Clone Wars show. In the Clone Wars era, Rex is my favorite non-Jedi character.
Okay.
In that Clone Wars era.
Yeah, no, he's terrific. I've seen probably half of the Clone Wars episodes. And Charles and I are starting to go through kind of slowly. But yeah, he's great.
Yeah. So anyway, I just thought that was funny. I busted out laughing when I saw that. And I don't know why I hadn't noticed it before. But it just goes to show. I've been watching these movies for decades now, and I'm still finding new stuff in them. So that just goes to show how great they are.
How great,
well they were
deep. Made. Yeah. And I think, it shows you just even, I think, the passion of people that enjoy it. They grew up with it, and now they're even expanding it. And finding ways.
And if, when they created the character of Rex and had him go through his storyline in Clone Wars and Rebels, did they see that guy dressed like a scout trooper, that old guy dressed like a scout trooper, and decide, you know what, we're going to build Rex up to be this guy? Yeah.
And, I think, I just love it, even as, Star Wars fans trying to find those little Easter eggs. Like, in the Obi-Wan series, you'll know the scene I'm talking about where, Obi-Wan's looking through kind of like that trophy room, right?
Yeah.
And they're trying to, pinpoint different Jedi that he sees. And again, it goes to show you how deep the universe is.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so, the Ewoks take out the Empire, with the Rebels' help. Or the Rebels take them out with the Ewoks' help, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
And destroy the shield generator so that the fleet can attack the Death Star.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Luke had turned himself in to Vader, so Vader took him up to the Death Star, and they're meeting with the Emperor Palpatine.
I've always thought this, was so consistent with Luke, even going back when he's kind of that simple, farm boy, really yearning to know who his dad really was.
Yeah.
Even never being dissuaded hearing about, first he thinks of him as his hero and then discovers who he really is. He holds out for that hope.
Yeah.
Right? It's such a integral part of his character.
Yeah, I mean, he never knew his father as Anakin. He never knew Vader as Anakin. He's just known him as Darth Vader and knew that Anakin Skywalker was his father and Darth Vader was once Anakin Skywalker. So yeah, it's just that love that he shows one of the most evil people in the galaxy, that ultimately redeems him, that redeems Vader. Yeah. But it's interesting, the whole, after failing to get Luke to turn and become his new apprentice, Luke stands up and he says, I'm a Jedi like my father before me.
Yeah.
Right. Acknowledging that to Vader, Vader looking on, seeing that Luke sees the good in him, that Luke sees the Jedi that Vader was before he turned.
It goes back kind of, as you're saying, how Luke was just telling Palpatine, like, no, like, your arrogance is your weakness, right? And, once you see it through, like, the prequels, like, like, Palpatine uses Anakin's desire to save the ones he loves the most to turn him. So, like, obviously, once he sees Luke, his son, in danger, right?
Yeah, because, I mean, if you remember, Anakin didn't have a father.
Yeah, no.
And so when he sees Luke acknowledging that Anakin is his father, Anakin doesn't know what it's like to have a father.
Right, not at all.
And Luke, you could argue, doesn't really know what it's like to have a father because he wasn't raised by his father.
Yeah.
He was raised by his uncle, by his aunt and uncle. But, you could see right there that, something clicks in Vader's mind where he realizes that, he didn't have a father, but he is Luke's father.
Yep.
He didn't have a father, but Luke does. And he seems to want, with his little breath as he has left, wants to be the father that Luke never had and that he never had.
Yes.
But it is kind of funny, though, during their lightsaber duel, when Luke is standing at the top of the stairs, that's at the point where Vader decides to say that Obi-Wan taught you well. Obi-Wan has taught you well because Luke has the high ground.
Always the high ground.
And the last encounter before, Darth Vader ended up in the suit was Obi-Wan had the high ground.
Obi-Wan told him he had the high
Yes, Obi-Wan told him he had the high ground. And then when Luke is standing at the top of the stairs and Vader is standing at the bottom of the stairs, that's when he decides to say Obi-Wan has taught you well. Is that a coincidence, or did they, see that and think, what, let's go ahead and put this line in episode 3. But yeah, so we get some more great piloting by Wedge.
Yes.
Lando is in the Falcon. After promising Han that he's not going to put a scratch on the Falcon, he ends up tearing off the radar dish and then getting it engulfed in flames as he's flying out of the Death Star, out of the core. So I don't call that not a scratch.
No.
So, yeah. But still, so Lando's co-pilot is Nien Nunb. He's a Sullustan. And did you know that the language that he's speaking is a real-life language?
Did not know that. I am not surprised.
I want to say it's Kenyan. I think is what it is. I think it's the Kenyan language.
Okay.
Kenya. It's if not Kenya, it's one of the other African languages that Nien Nunb is speaking.
Is that something that the actor knew how to speak, or was it written that way?
I don't know. I don't remember if it was just written that way or if that's just the actor's native language and they just had him start talking like that because it doesn't sound like most languages on Earth. Yeah. So most people watching the movie wouldn't pick up on it. But yeah, I thought that was interesting.
It is.
But yeah, so yeah, Wedge is now Red Leader instead of Red 2.
Of course.
For the Battle of Endor. Because in the first Death Star attack, he was Red 2.
He was Red 2.
But he is now taking over the squadron. And he's Red Leader. We didn't get enough Wedge in the trilogy. We really didn't.
No. Very, very minor character, but very important character.
Yes. The books really expand on Wedge.
And that's again,
especially the X-Wing series.
It really expand. Who knows? Maybe Disney Plus will do a series.
I mean, he did show up briefly in Rise of Skywalker.
Okay.
He was the belly gunner on the Falcon.
Right.
During the final battle. So that was nice. Did you know that Dennis Lawson, the guy that plays Wedge, is Ewan McGregor's uncle?
I did not know that.
Well, he is. So, yeah. Uncle and nephew both ended up playing Star Wars characters.
Cool.
So Ewan McGregor, of course, was the young Obi-Wan Kenobi in the prequels.
Yep.
And in the Obi-Wan Kenobi Disney Plus show. And I'm sure he'll show up at some other point in time, too, because he's great in that part.
He is great. And, I don't know what else we'll see him in, but I would love to see him some more.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is impressive, given how well Alec Guinness was in the role.
Alec Guinness, somebody who hated being in Star Wars, was so great in it. So great that, he, as we said before in the past episode, was to this date the only actor to be nominated for an Oscar for his role in a Star Wars movie.
Mm-hmm. And really, I guess, now they have a TV series, no one's been nominated for an Emmy yet.
Nope. Not yet. It's going to happen someday, though.
Yep. I can see it.
Yeah, it'll happen someday. Especially if they keep getting the great talent like Ewan McGregor and all of them. So, it's also, we didn't even touch on the fact that it's revealed that Leia is Luke's sister.
Right. No, I was kind of thinking about that earlier.
Which makes their makeout sessions before really creepy.
Really creepy.
Now, I mean, granted, they didn't know that they were siblings at the time, but still.
It's
still kind of creepy. And yes, at the time when they had that in the script, the fact that their siblings wasn't thought of yet, it wasn't put into the story yet, but still.
Yeah.
Still.
The same, Yoda could have said something before he just died.
Yeah. Yeah, he totally could have. He could have been like, yeah, Leia's your sister, and you made out with her, and it's kind of creepy, Luke.
No, but I think Leia was kind of, obviously, you see in the beginning, she's trying to break Han out, and then just an important part in the middle part of the movie, and then finally at the end, she finally realizes, oh yeah, she feels that connection herself with Luke, which she felt, earlier as well, in Empire. But yeah, it's, obviously that other reveal that they're sister.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite the reveal. And then, Han is all ready to back off and let Luke, let Leia be with Luke until Leia tells Han that Luke is her brother. And then he does this big sigh of relief and, but still doesn't mention that, Leia made out with her brother to spite Han.
She think that.
Remember on Hoth when
that kiss on Hoth?
Yeah, remember on Hoth when you were trying to prove a point to me and you made out with your brother?
Just to,
Is that something that he saves for, he'll just bank that for a time when he needs to blackmail or something. When he needs to get his way in an argument.
Whenever he wanted to leave the party, he's like, "Hey, Leia, remember that time with Hoth?"
Yeah. Yeah. They're at a boring Senate hearing or something, and Han really wants to go home. He's like, "Hey, Leia, remember that time on Hoth? All right, yeah, we got to go now." Oh,
but obviously, it plays into the larger thing. I guess do they even say she's also? Does it really even? Yeah, she just mentions her dad. Doesn't really say that her actual dad is dead in any of the movies, right?
No. That whole thing is revealed in one of the books that the galaxy finds out that Darth Vader is Leia's father.
Okay.
In the book, I believe it's Bloodlines.
All right.
Takes place not too long. It takes place a few years later. But.
Because prior to that, you just assume they blew up A New Hope.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, she says, you fought with her father, when she's trying to send the message to Obi-Wan.
Yep. Although in on that in the message she was talking about Bail Organa, her adopted father, who Obi-Wan fought with during the Clone Wars. Now he fought with her actual father too during the Clone Wars. But
you're just assuming it's her natural father when it was just her adoptive dad, just like Luke's.
Thinking that that Bail is her adopted dad.
Right. And she's aware of that, obviously.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it wouldn't have let her know. And then obviously through Obi-Wan you find out she was well aware.
Yeah.
That she was very different than everybody else.
Yeah, so then Darth Vader dies in Luke's arms after throwing the Emperor into the Death Star's reactor and getting fried by his Force lightning because it's still coming out of his fingers when he throws him down there to save Luke's life because Luke redeemed him with love.
Luke believed in him. He said with love.
Yes, if Luke was one of Captain Planet's Planeteers, he would be the Heart Kid. Heart. The kid with the monkey. Whose element is art.
The monkey kid. Is that an element? Is it really an element?
Yep. Yeah.
No. But no, I think it's always a terrific scene too when they finally
they had a very touching scene.
Face to face.
Very, very touching scene between Anakin Skywalker and Luke, after he has Luke take his mask off so he can look on him with his own eyes. A very touching scene. It's quite sad actually that it wasn't David Prowse in the scene, but it was Sebastian Shaw. Yeah,
it's still a terrific scene. Like, it reminds me. I mean, I don't want to get into like the prequels, but there's just certain scenes with Anakin as a character that I think really shine, and that's definitely one of them.
Yeah,
obviously. Yeah, it's acted well and it's sold well and presented well, and you can buy this guy that's this evil, foreboding character having this that side of him.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah. And there was actually a fan film that was made where they actually got in touch with David Prowse and they remade that scene with him in the scene.
Okay, which brings us, I guess, to the victory party.
Yes, the victory party on Endor, where you know those rebels were eating some stormtrooper. Because clearly the Ewoks eat people, because they were going to cook them. When the Ewoks first captured the rebels, they were going to cook them and eat them. So then you have all these dead stormtroopers all over the place. They're playing drums on their helmets. All right, the Ewoks set up the stormtrooper helmets as a drum set. So what'd they do with the bodies? They have these big bonfires, and they have a lot of mouths to feed because they're now hosting the rebels.
Just gonna burn them?
So are they gonna, cook up some stormtroopers and feed them to the rebels?
I mean, they're not eating Ewok.
No. I mean, I'm sure the Ewoks, food stores were, their food pantries and stuff. They didn't have enough food for all of the rebels that were there. So they had to do something. And people like to eat meat. So maybe they
just
cooked up
burned
the
a lot of calories.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe they cooked the stormtroopers up and then just didn't tell them that they were eating people. Especially since the only one that could really understand the Ewoks was C-3PO. So if the Ewoks told the rebels that they were eating, people, then they wouldn't understand them. So
yeah. Good question.
That's something that needs to be addressed, like officially. Did the rebels eat stormtroopers?
Yes. Someone has an answer out there for you on that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We'll leave it in the comments.
Yes. But anyway, I believe that is Return of the Jedi.
It is.
So,
again, it's, I think, a fitting end.
Yes.
To the trilogy.
Yes.
Probably would be my third choice of the trilogy. I think in terms of the special editions, I think it has the most glaring additions that I wish weren't added. But that is what it is. But it's a terrific end to trilogy.
Yes.
It's like any good trilogy needs a really good ending.
And
it has it.
It is an excellent, solid ending. Good triumphs over evil. And if they didn't want to go back and make the other movies, then it would have been a great, it would have been a fitting end.
It would have been a fitting end, exactly. And I think looking back at it, I think I'm glad to have the prequels. Obviously, I know people have varying opinions on them.
Yeah.
But I think the prequels in particular add, a lot to what you see in the trilogy.
They do. They had so much backstory. So when you rewatch the original trilogy, you can't help but think about some of those things from the prequels and see how some of this stuff actually came to be.
Yeah.
And even the sequel trilogy, to a certain extent. I mean, when you're watching the originals, because you know what's coming with the sequels. You know what happened afterwards. So it helps to really understand things a little bit better. But yeah, like I've said a million times before, I love this movie. I love all those Star Wars movies.
I do. Me too. They're beloved for a reason.
Yeah.
And timeless.
This is one of the ones that, the original trilogy I can watch over and over and over and over, and it never gets old.
Absolutely.
Even the prequels and the sequels I can watch over and over.
Mm-hmm.
But the original trilogy especially, I can watch it on a loop and it never gets old.
It's become such ingrained into American culture now.
Yeah.
It's funny, like even rewatching like certain 80s movies, and especially ones that have like kids in them, you see all the Star Wars stuff that they have,
Yeah.
And now just 40 years later, kids still talking about it, still have Star Wars toys, and as we said, Lego sets still. And
yeah. I wish they had those Lego sets when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Wish they had those when we were kids.
And even just like the spoofs, like, it had the Robot Chicken and Family Guy and Lego Star Wars, spoofs that just...
Yeah. Star Wars has spawned this whole subgenre of things.
And, even it's hard to escape because even, maybe for some of the grumpy people out there, that might dismiss it easily. You make any list of villains, Darth Vader is going to be in the top 3.
Yeah.
Of movie villains.
Yeah.
You can't escape that because he was so well done, classically done. And it's still one of the most perfect trilogies that you have. Because they all work together so well.
They do. They really do. So that is Return of the Jedi. So join us next time for we're going to be switching gears a little bit, and we're going to be moving into the 90s with The Big Lebowski. So that should be a good one. That should be a good episode.
It should be a great one.
We love that movie, and it'll be great to
everyone
watch it again.
Should be abiding with that one.
Yes. So yeah, Big Lebowski next time. And we will see you then.